share this podcast everywhere. Just do it right now. Just share it. Just give the link to someone. Tell everyone about it. So apparently I've been doing podcasting all wrong. I just read recently that in order to make sure your podcast is successful, you need to tell people to share your podcast at the very beginning. So I've been doing this all wrong because I've been telling people to share at the end. Maybe I should. Should I be doing my self-promotion at the very beginning? Just like, hey, yeah, follow me on social media. I don't know. That just sounds so uninteresting. You know, like that's not a good way to hook audience. Really? You see like a podcast cover that you like with a name that you like, and you're like, hey, I want to check this out. And you click on it, and the first thing it is like an ad for themselves. Like that's... I wouldn't want to listen to that. If I clicked on a podcast or clicked on anything for the first time, having no idea who the person is, what the channel is, anything like that, but it just sort of looked interesting, and I clicked on it, and like the very beginning was like someone like, hey, buy my merch. Like, I would be like, okay, I'm done. Like, if that's what you're gonna do, you know, just like self-promotion at the very beginning, like, I don't want to listen to that. I mean, like, I get pissed off when, like, YouTube ads come on at the very beginning. You know, like, I click to watch a video, and then, like, I got Chili's telling me to try their nachos or something. It's like, I don't give a fuck about that. Like, it's even worse when there's, like, 2 ads. So imagine if there was, like, a 5-minute self-promotion at the beginning of everyone's video or podcast. And, like, how does that make your podcast grow? I mean, honestly, like, if you put that at the very beginning of your stuff, right? Say, like, oh, subscribe, follow, share, all that stuff. Someone having no idea what your channel is about, do you really think they could be like, oh, shit, I better share this, you know? And just share it to everyone having no idea what your channel's about? I wouldn't. I'd be like, I don't even know what your channel's about. So, like, I mean, I can kind of guess maybe the gist of what your channel's about based off, like, the title or something. You know, if there's, like, a title that's like, oh, the Star Wars movies ranked, I'm going to know that the channel is going to be about either Star Wars or about movies. You know? But the point is like, I have no idea who to share it with. Because I don't have any, like, evidence. I don't know what I'm saying, you know, but you know what I mean. Like, I can't give it to someone without knowing if it's going to be any interest to them. You know what I mean? Like, if you told me to share with everyone, what if I shared your Star Wars channel with someone who's a diehard Star Trek fan and they hate Star Wars? Like, that does your channel no good. Because now this person knows a channel to trash on. They'll be like, oh, this guy's a Star Wars fan? Well, guess what? Star Trek is so much better. Like, that could be a detriment to your channel. So, like, I don't know. I think doing the self-promotions at the end is better. Because at least someone who's listening to your episode or you're watching your video or whatever, at least by the end of it, they know basically what your channel is going to be about. You know? And they'll be like, hey, I know who to send this to. And they send it to the correct people. You know, but I mean, like, comedy's good because, like, who doesn't like comedy? I mean, come on. Who doesn't like to laugh? Emo people. I'm just kidding, okay? Anyway, so yeah, we're on episode 23. You know, I kind of stopped doing, like, the big milestones. I hit, like, episode 10, and then I was like, you know what? No more milestones. I didn't even celebrate when we hit 20. 20 is a good number to celebrate, right? But also 25 is a good number to celebrate, so get ready, guys. I got nothing planned for 25. I'm going to do a podcast episode. That's all I have planned for episode 25. It was supposed to be a surprise, but I kind of spoiled it. Anyways, so yeah, I woke up early on Wednesday, today, because I didn't record last night. Which, I mean, is fine. Like, I'm good with recording episodes in the morning. I'm more fond of recording in the morning than in the afternoon. You know, because in the afternoon, I'm, like, all tired. And, like, my mind is drawing a blank because I'm like, dude, I just want to sleep. You know? So, like, I don't know. I like doing mornings better. I mean, I guess I could record Tuesday mornings instead of Tuesday afternoons. Because, like, recording this morning, it's, like, stressful. Because you have a deadline to reach. And you have to, like, record, edit, and upload in time. Which, I mean, it usually works out, so... like, it's all good. Anyways, I kind of want to do a story time today. Because I was talking with a friend of mine. And he said that he enjoys the story time episodes more. So figured I'd do a story time. And so here's a story that I haven't really told. And it's like the worst night of my life, okay? And like no, like nothing bad happened to me, but it was just like I don't know, it's a night that I would not want to experience again. So I was up at school and it was like Tuesday night or like a Wednesday night, something like that. And it was like the second day of school. Right? And so I'm in my dorm and, you know, we didn't have those suite style dorms that a lot of colleges have now. You know, where it's like you have the living room and a kitchen and then everyone has like their own individual rooms kind of. Or, you know, there's just like multiple rooms, right? It's sort of like an apartment, right? So my school had like traditional dorms, right? So it was just like one room and you stuck like 2 or 3 people in it. But I feel like these dorms were only built to be all doubles, just 2 people. But the school decided, you know what? We're going to cram 3 people into some of these babies. And I was one of the unlucky few who got crammed with 3 people. And I was like, well, this is great. You know, I got no room to breathe. So, sorry, I had to take a sip of my hot cup of Joe. So, I'm in my dorm, right? It's like late at night. And, you know, I decided to go to bed. Because, you know, it's a school night. You know, like, I don't have to stay up until like 3 o'clock in the morning. So, like, I went to bed at like, I don't know, 11 or midnight or something like that. And one of my roommates was already there. He already passed out. Like, he passed out, like, early as fuck. And my third roommate was, he was gone somewhere. And so I go to bed, right? I turn off the lights. Well, there's 2 lights. There was a big overhead light that, first of all, I hated being on because it was just, like, way too fucking bright. You know, it was like the fucking sun in your room. And, you know, I'm one of those people who like mood lighting. You know, just like soft lighting. And so we had this secondary light, which was just like a nice glow to the room. Like it wasn't overly bright, but it wasn't dark. You know, it was just like a nice light. So I preferred that light to be on, but for whatever reason, my other 2 roommates, they liked the sun in the room. I was like, what? How do you guys live like that? Anyways, so the big overhead light was on. And I want to go to bed. And like I said, since it was the fucking sun, I can't sleep when the sun is shining on my face. So I turned off the big overhead light and I turned on the small light because, you know, my third roommate was still gone. You know, I didn't want him to come into like a pitch black room and have no idea where he's going, right? I was trying to be considerate. So I have the secondary light on and I go to bed and I wake up to like our door being like slammed open, right? And I sort of like wake up and I'm like half asleep. And I look over and it's my roommate. He finally came back. I don't know what time it was. But he finally came back and he's with like few of his buddies or something like that, and his buddies are like talking, and he's like yelling at them. He's like, "Shh, my roommates are sleeping," and I'm like, "Dude, you barging into the room, like slamming the door open, how does that how does that help me sleep? Like, you woke me up from that." But I was like, whatever. And his buddies walk in and they turn on the fucking overhead light. Right after my roommate said that his roommates were sleeping, they turn on the overhead light. And I'm like, okay, first of all, why? The dude just said his roommates were sleeping, and your thought process is like, okay, well, let me turn on the fucking sun. Anyway, so the light turns on. Somehow my roommate, who was passed out way before, he's sleeping through all this shit. I have no idea how. But he's sleeping through all this, and so with the overhead light on, now I'm really awake. And I sort of like sit up, and I'm like looking at these guys, giving this look like, seriously? And my roommate was like, "Oh, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." And he like turns off the overhead light. He's like, "Guys, I told you they were sleeping." And you can tell all these guys are like, 3 sheets to the wind. You know what I mean? And so my roommate, he's like scrounging around for something, and he finds whatever he's looking for, and he like leaves. He's like, "Oh man, sorry about that." And then like he slams the door shut, and I was like, okay, yeah, you don't need to slam the door shut. But anyway, so I go back to sleep, right? Then a while later, he comes back, right? And it's just him this time. And now he's like a lot of sheets to the wind. Like, he's gone, right? And he's like stumbling in, and he had turned off the secondary light beforehand, like when he left before. And so since I'm in a triple, right? There was one bunk bed in the room, and then there was like a loft bed. And for people who don't know what a loft is, it's basically a bunk bed without the bottom bed. Okay? It's just like a raised bed. And it's so you could put like your desk under it or something under it to sort of maximize space. So I'm in the bunk bed. I'm on the top bunk bed. And my roommate, who was passed out, he's on the bottom bed. And my roommate, he just came back, who's 3 sheets to the wind. He's got the loft bed. Right? So he comes back in. It's like pitch black. He has no idea where he's going. So he's sort of like bumping into everything. And he's telling these things to shush. Okay? Now, I don't think he knew that I was awake at this point. Because, I didn't sit up this time. My eyes just opened because I woke up and I was like, you gotta be shitting me. This guy woke me up again. But anyway, so he's like telling all these things to shush. All that stuff. And he sits down in his chair at his desk. And he's doing something. And I don't really care because I'm like, I want to go back to sleep. But then I hear him, he climbs up on his loft bed. And he's up there for a little bit. And I'm like, okay, so he's finally in bed. So now I can go to bed. Because now I don't have to worry about someone barging into the room. So I close my eyes. I'm about to fall asleep. And I hear this loud bang in the room. And I'm like, I freak out because I'm like, yo, what the fuck was that? Because it was like louder than like a door opening. Okay, so I knew this wasn't the door. This was something else. And I sort of like jump up awake, and I'm looking all over, and I'm like, what the hell was that? And I look down, and my roommate, who was on the loft bed, had like rolled off the bed and like fell from the top. Right? And then he like turns around or something like that, grabs a trash can, and just starts throwing up in the trash can, right? Now, I feel bad for him, okay, because, I hate throwing up. Throwing up sucks, okay? But I could not take this because I cannot stand the sound of somebody throwing up or the sight of someone throwing up. It makes me want to throw up. It makes me literally sick, and I can't handle it, okay? And so I'm trying not to listen. I'm like plugging my ears because he's just going like on and on and on. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like grabbing my pillow. I'm like putting it around my ears because I'm trying not to listen to this shit. And I'm like, dude, I can't take this. Right? And he's going on. It felt like he was going for like 30 minutes. It was horrible. And then he finally like ceases, right? He sits in his chair and he's like sitting there for a little bit. And I'm like, okay, finally he's done, right? But then he starts going again. And at this point, he like missed the trash can. On his way over to the trash cans, he started going. So like a bunch of it got on the floor, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't, no, I can't do this. I can't take this right now. I'm trying to cover my ears. And he was going for like another 30 minutes. It was insane. And then he finally finishes. He goes into the fridge. He like gets a Gatorade, starts drinking some of that, which is good because you got to get, was it electrolytes back, something like that? Because like you get dehydrated when you throw up because you're throwing up all that liquid, right? So you need some water, some liquid back in your system. So then he's doing that, and then he climbs back into his bed, right? Then he starts going from the top of his bed, gets some of the shit on his bed, right? Leans over and starts going straight down into the trash can on the ground. And I'm like, no, there's no way this is happening right now, right? So he's going for like another 30 minutes, it feels like. And then when he's finally done, he's done for real this time, okay? He's finally done. And then he picks up an iPad and starts taking selfies of himself, like post vomit. And I'm like, what? Why? Who takes selfies post vomit? What? And then he goes to sleep with all this shit on his bed. Oh my gosh. Dude, I'm like, I can't take this. I woke up the next morning. Shit was still on the floor. And I'm like, oh my god. I left like super early. And like my class didn't start until like 10 or 11 or something like that. And I woke up at like 7. And I'm like, I'm out of here. I left at like 7:13 or something crazy like that. I'm like, I can't be in here. Okay? Because bro also didn't take out the trash for like another week. And I'm like, no. So, needless to say, I only lasted in that room for like a little bit. Then I'm like, okay, I need to move. And I requested like a transfer to a different room. Because I'm like, I can't deal with this. Worst fucking night of my life, dude. Probably the worst night for this guy too. Honestly, I do feel bad for him because that does suck. But bro, that was also like one of the longest nights of my life. I have no idea what time all this shit took place. But it had to have been like early in the morning. And I was also really tired the next day because, I barely got any sleep. Listened to this guy going for like 3 hours on end. Okay? Just not a night I want to experience again. And not a night I wouldn't want to be in his shoes. Okay? Because that would be even worse. The only thing worse than listening to vomit is being the one who's vomiting. No. Can't take that. I mean, I don't know many people who can take that. Like, who just, like, is okay with the sound of vomit? Like, who? It's like that gross, like, liquid mushy sound. God damn, I'm making myself sick right now. Sorry, that was just worst night of my life. No. Also, I don't even know how my other roommate slept through all of this shit. Everything that happened. He must be like the deepest sleeper on the face of the planet. 'Cause like I'm telling you, when the other guy rolled off from the top bed onto the floor, I mean, like, that was like the loudest bang ever. I don't even know how did this guy sleep through it? I want what this guy had. What? I really wish I was able to sleep through all that. So I never have to hear that? God damn. I gotta stop talking about this stuff or else I'm gonna make myself sick. Honestly. Man, no, I can't talk about this anymore. No. Something I do want to talk about though is so on my Instagram page, on my podcast Instagram page, it's so annoying when I like post something on there, and I get a bunch of these like, they have to be fake accounts, okay? But these people that are like, oh, promote it here, promote it on this, promote it on that, all this other crazy shit, and they like link accounts where supposedly they do podcast promotions. And I don't know how legit it is, because I mean, like, if you go on the page, you do see that there's people's podcasts that are being promoted on there, but I don't know if those shows are even real or anything. Because I think one time I went on this page and like the most recent show or whatever, I searched it up on like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find this podcast. And I'm like, how are you promoting a podcast that essentially just doesn't exist? So like, I don't even know if these things are real. But yeah, you pay money to get like a post or a story, or a post and a story, and then sometimes they put it in their bio or something like that for like a larger fee and all this other crazy shit. And like, they're all exactly the same. Different people recommend different accounts, but they all basically do the same exact thing, and they all claim to be the #1 podcast promoter on Instagram. I'm like, how is there like 10 #1 podcast promoters? And they're like, oh, we got 1 million followers, and then like every single one has 1 million followers. It's like, okay, it's not really that amazing then, you know? Tell me when you got like 2 million, okay? Because then that'll be different from all the other ones. But like, yeah, I don't know if any of these are real. There was this one account that someone recommended, right, on one of my Instagram posts, like, oh, promote it here, right? And so I checked it out, and of course it was like the podcast promoters, right? It had all the podcasts and all that shit. And I was like, you know, first of all, also, I don't even know how well they work, right? Because they're like, oh, we guarantee you'll get like, 1 million subscribers and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, but how do you know? Do you just guarantee that everyone who sees my podcast posted on your account is going to be like, I'm going to check it out? You can't guarantee that. Because like, what if someone like looks at the cover and like, that's I'm not interested in that. Anyways, that's not really the point. The point is like, I went there, they were promoting all these podcasts, right? It was great. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing this, obviously, like, I'm not going to pay real money for this, because also, like, like, I don't know, it just feels like it could be a waste of money, it feels like a scam. But anyways, so, then like a while later, I went back to that account, and the account was all about food. Like, it looked like it was a completely different account. And they had like a bunch of posts about like different food dishes. And they're like, we're the #1 culinary promoter on Instagram. And I'm like, what? Why did someone recommend a culinary promoter on my podcast page? And so I start scrolling through the photos, and there's like 1 million posts about food. But then I start getting into like a shit ton of just like blank white posts. And then after all the white posts, then you see all the podcast promotions. I'm like, whoa, okay, hold up. So this person just literally switched their account to something completely different. And like, also, how are you like the #1 podcast promoter and then just decide, you know what? I want to promote food, and then claim that you're the #1 food promoter. Like, that's how you know that this shit is like a scam. Like, what? Oh, one day, like, you just realize that no one was promoting food on Instagram, which #1 is false. Because I mean, like, people promote anything on Instagram. People promote anything on everywhere. But you just decide, oh, one day I'm gonna switch, and somehow claim the #1 spot. Oh, the #1 spot was just open for the taking. Also, how do you know you're the #1 food promoter when all your followers, your 1 million followers, are supposedly all people who want to listen to podcasts? They still had 1 million. That's how you know, like, even the followers are bots. they're not real. Like, if I followed a podcast promotion account because I want to find new podcasts to listen to, and then one day they just start promoting food, I'll be like, well, hold up. I followed because I want to find new podcasts to listen to. I don't care about food. Well, I mean, I do. I care about food a lot. I love food. But like, I followed the account for a specific reason. And then you just switch, like, I would unfollow. And I'm sure a ton of people would unfollow. So like, if anything, they would drop a bunch of followers. Like, I guarantee they'll still have like 500,000, because I bet that there's a bunch of people who just like don't even care. Or the other half is like all bots. But like, if there was any real people, they would probably unfollow because they just switched their account to something completely different. I mean, imagine if you're like following an account, right? Imagine you're following like Harry Styles or something on Instagram. And then one day Harry Styles is like, you know what? I'm going to give my account to Drake or something. And the account just becomes Drake. It's like, I didn't follow Drake. I followed Harry Styles. That's my point. It's like, if that happened, you would unfollow that account and be like, okay, now where's Harry Styles? Because that's who I want to follow. You know, that's why I followed in the first place. You know, I didn't follow Harry Styles on the chance that it would switch to Drake. Like, that's so dumb. But then anyways, I was like, oh, well, now this is getting interesting, right? I wonder if they're going to switch again. So I waited a few weeks. I checked back, and then it became all about shoes. We're the number one seller of high-end shoes, and they're selling like Air Force Ones and Jordan ones and all these other cool shoes and all that stuff. And it's like, and then you scroll down, they did the same thing. It was just like, you scroll down a bunch of shoe posts, and all of a sudden it's a bunch of white posts, and then you see all the food shit. And it's like, bro, how do you know you're the number one seller of high-end shoes? Because also, I guarantee you're not the number one seller of high-end shoes, because like, there's like this kid. Okay, I used to watch DJ Khaled on Snapchat back when DJ Khaled's snaps were actually good, when he wasn't just promoting himself all the frickin' time. Also, back when I had Snapchat. But he used to buy shoes off this kid who sells shoes to a bunch of celebrities. So if anything, he's the number one seller of high-end shoes. Because he's the one all the celebrities trust to buy shoes from. Like, how do you claim you're the number one seller of high-end shoes when you were just promoting food like a week ago? It's dumb. It's dumb. And like, that's why, like, even when I post other posts, and then other people, they're like, oh, you should promote on this account, you know? It's like a different account. It's like, I'm not gonna trust that. Because how do I know? Like, with my luck, right, I'm gonna pay to have a post on their account, and then the next day they're like, you know what? We want to promote food. And then they just post like a million white photos and start posting food, and it's like, okay, well, I just paid whatever the money is, $10-15 for an Instagram post that literally was probably only seen like by one person, because then you just flooded everyone's timeline with a bunch of white posts and food. Also, like, who would follow after that? Like, imagine if you were following this podcast promotion account, okay, and then one day you check your timeline and all it is a bunch of blank white posts. Like, I'm not talking about they just post like 9 posts. Like, I'm talking they post like 100 white posts, because they're trying to make this huge buffer between their food promotion and their shoe promotion to sort of hide the fact that they don't actually promote shoes all the time. It's just like, I wouldn't follow even after that. Like, I wouldn't even get to the new post about food. I would see like 4 white posts from the same account, and I'd be like, okay, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm not going to follow this account. And I would unfollow right then and there. It's just, That's how you know these people are bots, because they maintain 1 million followers throughout all these account changes. It's like, okay, I can understand if maybe, because food is like a general theme that everyone's gonna love. Because I mean, who doesn't like food? Okay, no one doesn't like food, because you literally need food to fucking survive. So like, I could see how maybe if you had 1 million followers and they're all following for podcast promotion, you start posting photos of some really good food. I can see why people would be like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll continue following this account, because this is some good food. I like food. So why don't I follow? But like, shoes? I mean, I like shoes, but shoes is a very niche subject, I would think. Like you don't, it's not every day that you meet someone who's like a sneakerhead, right? There's a lot of people who probably just don't care, or just like, the people who just buy shoes because they think they look cool. They're not interested in like all the facts and details and like the high-end shoes and all that stuff. And they're like, oh my god, you got the rare 69 fucking Ultra Boost shoes? Whatever like the rare one is, or something like that. And they know which ones are fake and which ones are real based off like the specific stitching on the shoe or something like that. They're like, oh my god, this one's fake because the stitching is 1 centimeter when the real shoe is 2 centimeters. It's like, okay. Most people aren't going to care about that. So like, if you switch your account from food to shoes, I feel like that would lose a lot of people, because they're like, okay, well, I don't really care about shoes that much. Like food I was okay with, because I eat food. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, that's why like when I see people on Instagram that I follow, where like, I don't know, they're like promoting some like small business or something like that, and they're like, oh, use code whatever at checkout and save like 15% off. And it's like some business that's, it's a small business. It's like, how are you so trusting? Like, if any account came up to me and was like, oh, do you want to or can you promote our stuff, we'll pay you this amount of money, I would feel like that's a scam. I'd be like, no. But I mean, if it was a high-end company like Nike or whatever, that's like, oh, promote our shit and we'll give you like $100 for it or whatever it is. It's probably more than that, but like, I would trust that because that's Nike, right? That's like a well-known thing. But like something like, I don't know, some like random account called like Sabrina's Closet or something like that, I'd be like, I've never even heard of this place. You only got like 1,000 followers on Instagram. You're not even verified. How do I know that this isn't a scam? It's just like, I don't understand how people are so trusting with that type of stuff. Also, it's like, who's going to be buying off of that? Really? Some random small, like, I'm all for helping small businesses, because they're small businesses, okay? They need all the help they can get. But like, I don't know. It's just like, I'm not really into that stuff. If someone promoted some small business, it's usually items of clothing that I wouldn't even wear. Because there was like this one guy who was promoting this small business. I don't mean to rip on this guy, because like, hey, it's bad collecting season. Everyone, I applaud this guy for chasing the bag, but like, he was trying to promote this company that sells like, it looks like it's almost like homeless clothes. Like it's all dirty and like tore up, and I'm like, that, how is that fashionable? Like, who's really gonna be buying that stuff? I'm like, I wouldn't want to wear that. I don't want to look dirty. I want to look clean. Like, I'm not one of those people who buy like Gucci or some shit like that, because that's just like $5,000 for a sweater, really? Like, why? Why would you pay that? But also, why would you pay $5,000 for like a raggedy sweater? It's like right back to those Gucci shoes where they were made to look worn. You know, it's like, why? Why pay $1,000 for shoes that look worn? Why not just pay $1,000 for shoes that look brand new and then wear them out? I mean, I wouldn't even pay $1,000 for shoes anyways, but like if you're a person who would pay $1,000 for shoes, just get the pair that looks brand new and then wear them out authentically. Because then you got that time where like you can show off these brand spanking new shoes. You know, they look motherfucking clean. But, you know, there's some people, I guess, they're like, I don't want to wait that long, you know? I don't want to wait a month for my shoe to look dirty. I just want to pay $1,000 and make it look dirty now. But why? I don't know. It's just like, but yeah, this guy was promoting these clothes, and I'm like, hey, I'm sure there's a market for it, because I've seen people who wear that type of clothing, but it's just not really a thing for me. And also, it's sort of like a rare item of clothing. Like, not everyone wears it. I've seen people wear it, but it's like 1 out of 100 people I see wear that type of clothing. So it's like, you would have more luck if you sold the same clothes, but it like brand new, you know, without looking worn in. I don't know. But hey, like I said, more power to this guy, you know, chasing the bag. I applaud you for that, you know. We all got to pay our bills somehow. All right, so that's going to wrap up the episode here. So thank you guys for listening. Time for the self promotion. I know I kind of did that at the beginning, but you know what? That was for a joke, okay? I mean, seriously, share the podcast, but I mean, like, anyways. So yeah, share this podcast, whatever you're listening to this podcast on. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and leave a review. Follow my social media at RealJLions on both Instagram and Twitter, and follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter at Lion on Main. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Share. Buy my merch. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Love you. I don't know. Do I?